I was sitting in my lawyer's office when my ex-husband's attorney slid a document across the table with a smug smile. My client is willing to settle for 50-50 custody, despite your allegations. But you need to understand, Ms. Peterson, that without any proof of these supposed incidents, continuing to make these claims could be considered defamation. My ex-husband Derek sat back in his chair, arms crossed, that same cold smile I'd seen 1,000 times before. The one that said he'd won. The one that said I was crazy, dramatic, making things up for attention. She has no proof because there is no proof, Derek said calmly. I've never laid a hand on her. This is just her way of trying to take our daughter away from me. What neither of them knew was that 3 days earlier, the police had executed a search warrant on our former home. And buried in the back of Derek's closet, they'd found something he thought he'd destroyed 2 years ago. My old backup phone. The one with every text message, every voicemail, every photo, and every video I'd ever taken. The one with 3 years of documented evidence that would turn his confident smile into a prison sentence. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where this really started. My name is Sarah Peterson. I'm 34 years old now, but this story begins when I was 27 and thought I'd found the love of my life. Derek was charming, successful, attentive. He worked in commercial real estate, made good money, said all the right things. We dated for a year, got married, and had our daughter Emma within the first 3 years of marriage. For the first few years, things seemed normal. Derek was particular about things, wanted the house a certain way, had opinions about my clothes and my friends, but I told myself he just cared about our family looking good. That he had high standards. That wanting the best for us wasn't controlling, it was ambitious. The first time he hit me, Emma was 18 months old. I'd forgotten to pick up his dry cleaning because Emma had been sick and I'd spent the day at the pediatrician. It was a slap, quick and shocking. He apologized immediately, cried, said he was under so much stress at work that he'd never do it again. I believed him because I wanted to believe him. Because we had a baby and a mortgage and a life together. Because it was just once, and he seemed genuinely remorseful. It wasn't just once. Over the next 4 years, the violence escalated. Slaps became shoves. Shoves became punches. Punches became worse. He was always careful. Never where people could see. Never where bruises would show in normal clothes. Always with apologies after. Always with excuses about stress, about work, about me pushing his buttons. And I stayed. I'm not proud of it, but I stayed because I was scared, because I didn't have family nearby, because he controlled our finances, and because he told me no one would believe me. I'm respected in this community, he'd say after. You're a stay-at-home mom with no income and a history of anxiety. Who do you think they'll believe? But about 2 years before I finally left, something changed. I started documenting everything. I had 2 phones. My main phone that Derek knew about, that he'd occasionally check, that I kept completely clean. And an old phone I'd kept from before we were married, a backup I'd stuck in a drawer and forgotten about. I charged it secretly, kept it hidden in different places around the house, and I used it to document everything. Every text message where he threatened me. Every voicemail where he screamed abuse. Photos of bruises, of holes he'd punched in walls, of broken furniture. Short videos I'd take during arguments where he'd lose control. I backed everything up to a cloud account he didn't know existed, using an email address I'd created at the library. I was meticulous. I dated everything, added notes about what had happened before and after. I recorded him admitting to hitting me, apologizing for specific incidents. I photographed the gun safe where he kept firearms and documented when he'd threatened to use them. I kept a detailed journal of every incident. I did this for 2 years. Building my case, building my evidence, waiting for the right moment to get out safely. The moment came on a Tuesday night. Derek had come home angry about a deal that had fallen through. He started yelling, throwing things, and then he grabbed me by the throat. For the first time, he did it in front of Emma. She was 5 years old, screaming and crying, and something in me just broke. When he finally let go and stormed out of the house, I took Emma and left. I drove to a women's shelter I'd researched months before. They helped me file a police report, get an emergency restraining order, and find a lawyer. But I made a critical mistake. In my panic to get out, I'd left my backup phone behind. I'd hidden it in the heating vent in the bathroom, and in the chaos of grabbing Emma and essentials, I forgot it. I realized it the next day and nearly had a panic attack. All my evidence, 2 years of documentation, was sitting in a house Derek now had complete access to. I told my lawyer and the police about the phone, but by the time they could get back to the house with me to retrieve my belongings, it was gone. I checked the heating vent while Derek watched with that smug smile. Empty. Looking for something? He asked innocently. That's when I knew he'd found it. He'd found my evidence and destroyed it. Without that phone, I had very little concrete proof. The restraining order was based on my testimony about the choking incident, but Derek claimed I was making it up, that we'd had an argument and I'd left voluntarily. No marks on my neck. No witnesses except Emma, and she was too young to testify. The cloud backup became my hope. I had access to all the files I'd uploaded, and I gave copies of everything to my lawyer and the police. But Derek's lawyer argued that without the original device, there was no way to prove the files were authentic. They could be faked, doctored, created by me to frame him. In court, the admissibility of my evidence became questionable. The divorce proceedings were brutal. Derek fought me on everything. Custody, assets, support, all of it. He painted me as unstable, vindictive, a liar trying to destroy a good man's reputation. His lawyer was expensive and aggressive. My lawyer was good but working partially pro bono because I had no money of my own. The abuse allegations went nowhere without the phone. The prosecutor's office declined to press charges, saying it was he said she said without physical evidence or the original device. The family court was considering joint custody, possibly even majority time with Derek because he had the stable income and home. I felt like I was losing my mind. I had documented everything, done everything right, and it wasn't enough. Derek had outmaneuvered me by finding and destroying the evidence. Except he hadn't destroyed it. He'd kept it. I found out later, during the criminal trial, why he kept it. Derek's personality was built on control, on winning, on having power over people. That phone represented his victory over me. It was proof that he'd beaten me, that he'd found my secret weapon and neutralized it. He kept it like a trophy, hidden in his closet, occasionally looking at it to remind himself how smart he was. That arrogance is what destroyed him. 3 months into the divorce proceedings, something unexpected happened. Derek got pulled over for running a red light. Routine traffic stop, should have been a ticket and done. But the officer noticed Derek was extremely agitated, sweating, nervous. When asked if everything was okay, Derek snapped at him. The officer noticed what looked like blood on Derek's knuckles. Fresh. When he asked about it, Derek claimed he'd scraped his hand on something at work. The officer wasn't convinced and asked Derek to step out of the car. Derek refused. His refusal gave the officer reasonable suspicion to look more carefully. In plain view on the passenger seat was a handgun. Derek had a permit for it, but he also had an active restraining order that prohibited him from possessing firearms. That's an automatic felony. Derek was arrested on the spot. During booking, he made statements about how I'd ruined his life, how he should have finished the job before I left, how he still had proof that I was a liar but the courts wouldn't let him use it. The booking officer, who'd been trained on domestic violence cases, flagged these statements. A detective was assigned to take a deeper look. Detective Maria Santos contacted my lawyer, then contacted me. She'd read through the entire case file, looked at my cloud backup evidence, and believed me. But she needed something concrete to build a case. The things your ex said during booking, she told me during our first meeting, about having proof you're a liar, about finishing the job. Those are concerning statements. Combined with the illegal firearm possession, I think we have enough for a search warrant. I didn't let myself hope. I'd been disappointed too many times already. 2 weeks later, Detective Santos called me. We found the phone. I actually dropped my own phone when she said it. When I called her back with shaking hands, she explained. They'd executed the search warrant early that morning. In Derek's bedroom closet, in a shoebox under some old papers, they'd found my backup phone. He'd kept it. The idiot had actually kept it. It was password protected, but our tech guys got in, Detective Santos said. Sarah, everything you said was on there. Every text, every photo, every video. And because it was found during a legal search with a valid warrant, it's all admissible evidence. We have him. I sat down on the floor of my tiny apartment and cried. 2 years of living in fear, months of court battles, the constant gaslighting and accusations that I was lying, all of it was finally over. The truth was going to come out. The backup phone changed everything. Once the DA's office reviewed the contents, they immediately filed criminal charges. Domestic violence, assault, battery, criminal threats, illegal possession of firearms. The evidence was overwhelming and irrefutable. In the divorce proceedings, my lawyer filed an emergency motion. With the phone's discovery and the criminal charges, the entire custody conversation shifted. Derek's visitation was immediately suspended pending the criminal trial. The court froze assets. Everything he'd been winning, he was suddenly losing. I'll never forget the meeting with Derek's lawyer after the phone was found. The same attorney who'd been so smug before, sliding papers across the table with barely concealed contempt. This time he looked tired and defeated. My client is willing to concede full custody to Miss Peterson, he said quietly. In exchange, we'd ask that she consider supporting a plea deal in the criminal case. My lawyer looked at me. I looked at Derek, who couldn't even meet my eyes. No deal, I said. He goes to trial, or he pleads guilty to every single charge. Those are the only options. Derek took the plea deal eventually. 3 years in prison, 5 years probation after that, permanent restraining order, no contact with Emma until she's 18 and chooses it herself, mandatory batterers intervention program, and supervised visitation only if a court approves it after his release and after Emma agrees. The divorce was finalized while he was in prison. I got full custody, the house, 70% of assets, and child support. His family, who had supported him throughout everything, finally heard the truth when portions of the evidence were made public during his plea hearing. Some apologized to me. Others just disappeared, unable to face what he'd done. The backup phone saved my life and my daughter's future. But it almost didn't matter because I'd left it behind. That mistake haunts me still, even though it worked out in the end. If Derek had been smarter, if he destroyed that phone like I thought he had, things might be very different now. I think about that sometimes. How close I came to losing Emma to a system that wanted physical proof I couldn't provide. How many other women are in that position right now, telling the truth but unable to prove it? How the burden of evidence falls on the victim to document their own abuse while in fear for their lives. Detective Santos told me that what saved my case was Derek's arrogance. Abusers like your ex-husband, they need to feel powerful, she explained. Keeping that phone made him feel powerful, like he had control over you even after you left. He couldn't destroy it because then he'd lose that feeling. It's a pattern we see. They keep things, trophies, proof of their control. It's often what brings them down. Emma is 7 now. She's in therapy, working through what she witnessed and experienced in that house. She's also thriving in ways she never did when Derek was in our lives. She's louder, sillier, more confident. She doesn't flinch at raised voices anymore. She doesn't tiptoe around trying to keep everything perfect. We live in a small apartment, and money is tight even with child support, but it's ours. Safe. Peaceful. No one yells here. No one throws things. No one has to hide phones or document abuse or walk on eggshells. I started working again, first part-time while Emma was in school, now full-time as an office manager. It's not glamorous, but it's mine. I earned it. I'm rebuilding credit, rebuilding savings, rebuilding a life. I also volunteer now, at the same women's shelter that helped me escape. I talk to women who are where I was, scared and trapped and trying to figure out how to get out safely. I tell them my story. I tell them about documentation, about backup plans, about the importance of evidence even when it feels hopeless. I always stress one thing: never keep evidence where your abuser can find it. Not in your house, not in your car, not anywhere they have access. Cloud storage with passwords they don't know. A trusted friend's house. A safety deposit box. Anywhere but where they can destroy it. And I tell them that even if they lose the physical evidence like I did, the truth has a way of coming out. Derek's arrogance is what saved my case, but it wasn't the only factor. It was Detective Santos believing me. It was the booking officer who flagged his statements. It was the traffic cop who noticed something was off. It was a system that, when it works right, protects victims. It doesn't always work right. I know that. I got lucky in a lot of ways. But I also fought. I documented. I left when I saw him hurt my daughter. I didn't give up even when he found my phone and I thought I'd lost everything. The backup phone became evidence in 3 other cases, actually. When the police forensically examined it, they found Derek's text conversations with me and others that revealed a pattern. He'd been abusive in previous relationships. He'd made threats to other people. The phone was a window into who he really was, not the charming, successful businessman he pretended to be in public. His employer fired him after the plea deal. His real estate license was revoked. His reputation in the community is destroyed. Some people might say I should feel bad about that I ruined his life. I don't. He ruined his own life by choosing violence. By choosing control over partnership. By choosing to hurt the people who loved him. I just made sure there were consequences for those choices. I've been asked if I regret marrying him, if I wish I'd seen the signs earlier, if I blame myself for staying. I used to. I spent months in therapy working through the guilt and shame. But I've made peace with it now. I was young and he was manipulative. The abuse was gradual. I did the best I could with the information and resources I had at the time. What I don't regret is documenting everything. Even when it felt paranoid, even when it felt like I was betraying my marriage by secretly recording. Even when it seemed hopeless. I don't regret fighting for my daughter. And I don't regret the look on Derek's face when his lawyer told him the police had found the phone. That moment, when he realized his trophy had become his downfall, when the thing he'd kept to feel powerful over me was the thing that stripped all his power away, that moment made everything worth it. People ask me what I'd tell other women in abusive situations. I tell them this: document everything you safely can. Tell people you trust. Make a safety plan. And know that even when your abuser says you have no proof, even when they're confident they've destroyed the evidence, even when the system seems stacked against you, the truth has weight. Derek told me I had no proof. He told his lawyers I had no proof. He told the police I had no proof. He was so certain that finding and hiding my backup phone meant he'd won. But the police found it. And everything he'd tried to bury came to light. My ex-husband is in prison. My daughter is safe. And I'm rebuilding a life I actually want to live, not one I'm surviving in fear. The backup phone is in an evidence locker somewhere, part of a closed case. I don't need it anymore. I have something better now. I have freedom. I have peace. I have a daughter who's learning that she never has to accept being treated badly. I have a future that isn't overshadowed by violence. And I have the knowledge that when Derek said I had no proof, he was wrong. Dead wrong. And that mistake, that arrogant certainty that he'd gotten away with it, is what put him exactly where he belongs. Sometimes justice takes time. Sometimes it comes from unexpected places. Sometimes it's hiding in the back of a closet in a shoebox, waiting to tell the truth when the liar thinks he's won. I'm Sarah Peterson. I survived domestic violence. I documented my abuse. I lost my evidence and got it back. And I'm here to tell anyone who needs to hear it, your truth matters. Your evidence matters. And abusers who think they've silenced you are often the architects of their own downfall. The backup phone proved that. And I'll spend the rest of my life grateful for Detective Santos, for that traffic stop, and for Derek's arrogance in keeping what he should have destroyed. He thought it made him powerful. It made him convicted. And that's a justice I can live with.